Alexa, what's the date?
Today is Monday, November 8th.
I thought that was what the date was, and it is Monday, November 8th, 2021. I'm still 74 by a couple of months. I'm cruising towards, if I can do it without too much in the way of drama, my 75th birthday. And then I think about it probably more than the average person. I got a screw loose down there. Need some a little bit of 1040, WD-40, not 1040. Yeah, apply some IRS to the bottom of this, and it'll be no. Anyway, I do spend more than what I think the average person at my age, or probably at any age, thinking about the possibility of my own demise. But I guess I don't think about it in some depressed sort of way, because I think of it as death is just going to be a natural part of my existence. It'll be the final part of my existence, or the terminal part, but it's still quite a normal part, just like that squeaky chair is a normal part of this sitting arrangement. Nothing to be depressed about. Now that chair, I can apply some WD-40 and probably eliminate that noise. But seeing as I've had this chair for more than 2 years, and it had that squeak on it when I bought it, and I haven't changed it yet, odds are I'm not going to change it. That's the way I roll, I guess. I would like to catch you up with what's going on in my life. I'd like to bring you up to date, but I'm not sure how far behind you are, or where you left off in this adventure, or if you've ever been on the trip. Probably, if you're like most people, this is not a trip that you've had any association with. So I guess I shouldn't feel obligated to catch you up. But I should feel obligated not to make this chair squeak when it does. But it's almost a random thing. One move on this chair produces no sound, and then a couple of minutes later, that exact same move will produce a loud squeak. So I guess without applying some oil, lubrication to the chair, I'm not going to get rid of the noise. And I'm not going to be able to avoid it, because I'm not exactly sure I understand when it happens anyway. I'm going to set a timer. Alexa, set a timer 15 minutes.
15 minutes, starting now.
So that's going to be my limit on how much I'm going to record here. I can get started on a subject and go for hours. And so, well, and I'm just talking to myself, so I don't know. Is that normal? Probably not. Probably not normal. I am using 2 cameras today. I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything to other than just look at the way the 2 cameras record this. On my right, which would, I guess, from your viewing angle, would be your left, I have I have my old camera. It's probably 5 years old. It was a top-of-the-line camera at the time from Sony. I think I paid about $1,500 for it. By comparison, today, if you buy the top of the line camera from Sony, which I would love to do, you're probably going to pay $4,000 or $5,000 for just the body, and then all these beautiful lenses that I've bought over time. I've bought the top grade lens for those Sony cameras. Won't work on the new one. Not without some sort of adapter, and even with the adapter, they're not like having the native lenses for the new system, so you could you could easily be $10,000 into a replacement camera. And I'm sure it would give you video that's like butter, that just melts onto the screen. But since I'm the only one that's probably ever going to watch this, that would seem like a bit of an extravagance. And on the other side, that would be to my left, again to your right most likely, is the new Panasonic. Now, new to me, it's not their latest, nor is it their top camera for recording videos. And when I talk about top cameras, I'm talking about the consumer or the prosumer camera. I'm not talking about cameras that either of these companies might be making with professionals in mind. A lot of professional photographers, videographers use these consumer, prosumer cameras. But if you're doing a film for Netflix or in Hollywood, you would probably buy the next, the super pro cameras, which can cost, $50,000. That's not what I'm talking about. But on this side is the Panasonic S5. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, it is the Panasonic. I think in front of that is a GH, but they don't feature that on the body of the camera anymore, so they just call it an S5. They have a camera which is in price above this camera, but which in specs is very similar to this camera. In fact, this camera is lighter and more affordable. I think this camera is a $2,000 body camera now, and the S1, which is the camera above it, may cost another $1,000 or so. And I'm sure by now, even though I haven't kept up with it, they probably have a replacement camera. I was spoiled by being in the world of computers where I worked, and my expectations were kind of whacked out of reality because they operated the advancement in computers and what they could do and what they would provide operated under a law which I had in my head a second ago, but I can't remember the name of it right now. But anyway, it was the guy from Intel, one of the founders, who said that in a short period of time, like 18 months or some period of time, the capacity and the performance of these computer devices would double and their price would halve. So we grew up in a time in business where you would pay $10,000 for a computer, say a year before, and a year later you would get according to that law, and of course it wasn't a true law, it was just an observation stated in the form of a law, that $10,000 now is $5,000 a year later, and you're getting twice the computer. And that continued on for some time until Apple decided that was a crazy model, and they kind of flipped that back towards, if you're going to buy the later devices and the later gadgets, whether it was a phone, a camera, a music player, you were going to pay more as it got better. But in the PC world, it really did, today you could, in today's money, you pay a lot less for a lot more features in a computer. Not so with cameras. I don't think that's ever been the case with cameras. I think they've always been, as the technology advances, good Lord, I don't know if I can sit in this fucking chair much longer. As the technology advances, so does the price. Now, did I want to spend my precious 15 minutes here talking about that subject? No, but since I don't have any notes in front of me, I have nothing prepared, I would call this a stream of consciousness conversation anyway, and I have very little control over what I'm going to say or whatever the subject of this discussion is going to be. So, I've kind of tried to keep certain subjects off the table. I've spent way too much time in the past couple of years talking about the effects of the pandemic and COVID. It appears that if you look at the current data of new infections and other ways, deaths, daily deaths, and other ways they track the pandemic, that it indeed has trended way down. And it may be that through, a majority of Americans following reasonable, scientifically based measures to fight the COVID, that we have got it under somewhat control. And it may be that a few more months, maybe in the winter or spring of next year, it will become a pandemic of the past. We won't have to make these, these harder measures to make it go away. I don't know if that's true because the data is confusing, and the experts don't speak clearly enough. Maybe because they can't. Maybe the data isn't conclusive enough to say that. But those a little bit removed from the science, commentators on TV and other places of lesser repute, promise us that the COVID will be behind us in just a few months. And I hope that's true. I don't know. I'm not sitting here willing to make a prediction. I think this thing is a nasty beast that we've been attacked by. And, if it's going to leave, as they say now, that would be great. Of course, those who have all along been saying we don't even have the COVID, or it's just like the cold or the flu, blah, 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 they're going to say, see, we told you. And so more people will be sucked into that vacuum of truth. I guess it's a vacuum of non-truth. But I have nothing to argue with about, tell them to try to convince anybody of anything, especially that my ideas about COVID, which are weak at best, should have any sway over anybody else. My goal, when I first learned of this pandemic, was to do things that I thought would help me and anyone who listened to me make it through the pandemic, because people were dying. Probably in America at this point we have more than 1 million people died from COVID. I know the official number is more like 800,000, but I'm as others are skeptical that the number is so high. I'm more skeptical, or equally skeptical, that the number is really in fact stating too low a count. So we'll see. I hope that we're through it. And I hope that we're able to move on. It would be nice if it were like the plague and other scourges of, times in the past, the flu of 1918, whenever 17 or 18. That pandemic, when it was done, eventually it just seemed to burn out. It would be nice if in the final embers of this horrible pandemic that it just simply goes away. That would be nice. I think that the effect on our society, and by the way, the fact that it's going away here in America doesn't mean that it's going away in other countries that don't have the vaccine and aren't able to take the measures that we do to, even though a significant portion of us aren't taking the measures that are reasonable to fight this horrible scourge. But when I'm talking about the pandemic going away, I can only talk about America, because this is where I live. This is my experience. This is my truth. I can't speak for India, Pakistan, China. I can't speak for any place but the one that I live in and kind of have watched the news on. And I will say that in a lot of ways, maybe age is the factor, but in no small part because of the experience that I have had following this pandemic on the news, that I've grown weary of listening to the news. We are hopefully moving towards post-pandemic living, but we should be post-Trump living. He hasn't been president for a year, and yet he's on the news as much today as Biden is, still spouting the same lies, hatred, perversion that he was dealing in, the same excrement that he was producing in his presidency, especially his late presidency, as it got near the end of his term. It still works today. He can still gin up a crowd of thousands of people to come and listen to him repeat the same lies, charges that other people in his circle have gone to jail and have lost their fortunes spewing, and the president seems invincible, the former president, from any result of what he has done. And I've tried to set him aside in my mind, and probably to a very real extent I have. I have the fear, based on what I know of our recent off-year elections, and then next year we have the midterm. So this was the 1 year off-year elections when nobody's running for any federal offices, but all state offices, and the Republicans did a horrifying good job in getting elected. They replaced some very strong, entrenched Democrats. We had become comfortable with the idea that Virginia, a southern state, has become a solid light blue state. It's had a Democratic governor for like 3 terms, which is a long time, especially when they don't allow their governors to hold consecutive terms. 3 separate Democratic elected Democrats have been governor of Virginia, and even their House and their Senate legislatures have flipped to Democratic. But we lost the governorship there. We almost lost New Jersey. I know New Jersey is blue, but I never think of that as a blue state because, man, I just don't think of New Jersey as a bastion of progressive thought, and I don't think it is. That means my 15 minutes are up, and I haven't even started talking. Alexa, stop. So I'm gonna stop here. So I guess I remain vaguely aware of the news. I do read my news feeds on my portable devices, on my phone and on my iPad. I watch some YouTubes. Sometimes I watch the news, but I no longer watch news on a daily basis, nor do I read any papers. I don't read the New York Times. I used to subscribe to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, and I no longer subscribe, and I no longer read those papers. And I've pretty much set the news aside. I just can't process it. It is detrimental to my health, mental health for sure, and that can certainly pour over to my physical health. So I have stopped consuming large chunks of news. I guess I still watch some. I would say that I may not be completely a non-news consumer, but I am pretty low now compared to where I used to be. In fact, it was all my life. I've reached the point in my life where I've kind of got myself into the mental state of realizing there are many things that I have no control of. I have no control if the sun is going to come up in the morning on the east. Now I understand at a more rudimentary laws of nature and astrophysics that the sun doesn't come up, but I'm going to use poetic language to describe it. So the sun comes up in the east every morning. If it doesn't come up in the east, or it decides not to come up one morning, well, we're screwed. I know that. I know that's a possibility for whatever reason, but it's unlikely and it's nothing I can control. Who's going to be president in 3 years? Again, it could be Donald Trump again. I think there's a higher likelihood 3 years out of that election, this cycle, of Trump returning to the presidency than there was 3 years out from his original election when he had no chance. Nobody thought of him as having a chance. Now he's got a solid 30-40% of the Republican base is in his camp. And the rest of the Republican Party has been so corrupted by his, the toxic nature of his political maneuverings, that party is very much likely to, if not attempt to re-elect Trump, will bring someone as equally vile. And I think the American people, first of all, a large swath of the American people, a large portion, have never learned anything from Trump being president. They think he was the savior of our country, that he was somehow the savior of the world. And they want him back. So I would say that a third of America fits that description, starting from the word go. And the Democrats, even though we have Joe Biden as president, I don't think 30% of the country is united behind Joe Biden or his vice president Harris. So in that sense, I think the Democrats are in a much weaker position. I think the Republicans who support Trump, his insanity, his stupidity, his toxicity, whatever you want to call that, are very amped up. They're ready to give it another go. They're ready to pour their money in, their treasure, whatever. I mean, they're willing today to not get vaccinated because Donald Trump, not the doctors, but Donald Trump didn't tell them to get vaccinated. And their support of Trump is so convoluted and so solid that when he says, yeah, get the vaccination, they boo him. But I guess it's okay. They can reject one idea that he has, which happens to be get vaccinated, because it doesn't fit with their own slimy thinking. But they are ready, they're charged up. They're ready to go again. They're ready to fill those stadiums. They're ready to die for that cause. QAnon is still active. It's still a very real thing. I don't believe in my heart of hearts that America, that any nation conceived in liberty with freedoms and our form of democracy, can survive the vile nature of the Republican Party and of those who they have gathered in their tent. Now, I don't want to, this is just okay. If you find this somewhere in the future, remember this is November 8th, 2021. Beautiful Monday morning in November. The weather is just incredible. All that is true. And I'm making my predictions. Okay, I'm not predicting that the Republicans are going to win again in 3 years for the presidency. But I do believe that the following is going to happen. In the midterms, we are going to lose at least one of the houses of Congress. We only have the Senate by the vote of the president, actually the vice president. So that gives us a 51-50 majority on things. But we don't have a solid 51. You know, if a couple of dissenters exist in that group, and there are two at least very strong dissenters of every thing that the Democratic Party stands for and are trying to accomplish, so they're going to frustrate anything that the Democrats try to do. And I think we will lose probably the Senate and not unlikely the House. So I'm not making a prediction, except I will predict we're going to lose one of the houses in the midterms. And then we are going to lose the presidency in 4 years. It will return to the Republicans, whether it's Trump or, you know, what Trump's role in the presidency and the Republican Party has produced. That will be the result of the election in 3 years. We will lose to that scum. And those folks will get elected on a reality that doesn't exist. The white majority, are the ones that are suffering at the hand of the racist minorities, and laws and measures, policies will be set into effect to right the wrongs of the oppressed majority in this country. We will, you know, Trump's first term in office will look like a walk in the park, a picnic, compared to what the second term will look like. And the second term, in my opinion, does not have to be Donald Trump. It can just be one of his fucking crazy supporters. Somebody who shares the vision, whatever that insane vision is. If we have an elected official, which I believe Biden is, who is embracing reality and trying to meet it on realistic terms, whether it be negotiating with our allies and our less than allies in the world, and trying to bring some world support to face some of the awful challenges that are pressing down on our very chance of long-term survival on this planet, we still have a very high chance of failure, because some of those problems are, maybe we've already gone past the tipping point and we can't fix them. They keep saying, you know, I think they keep moving the goalpost and saying, well, we've got another decade to act. Maybe we do. I suspect we don't. But even if we had a president and elected officials that were dedicated to facing those problems, trying to make our society survive, our people survive, the odds are still against us. But with Trump's re-election, in whatever form that may be, we won't have a government that gives one flying fuck about reality. Will not do anything to protect our drinking water, our fresh air, control climate change, reduce violence. Any of those things, those are all off the table. And I don't believe that the survivability of America is assured when we are providing solutions to problems that don't exist and ignoring the very real problems that we face as a country.